What is going on? Leaders and influencers. So great to get some time with you today. I want to share a few thoughts with you. So, how are you getting sharpened, and how are you responding to getting sharpened? Let me bust out what led me to this thought today. So, in my devotions, I did John 1. And John 1 through 3, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. So that's John 1 through 2. So it was just a great reminder to me that when I'm getting sharpened, those areas in my life that I'm getting sharpened and refined and dialed in, that is part of God's plan to make us better leaders, homeschoolers, influencers, entrepreneurs, whatever your thing is, right? Whatever the areas of your life that you are, that you're involved in. So here's some things to think about. So one is, and here's why I love sharing this stuff, is because one of my missions is to change the world by changing your world by changing you. And part of that leader development journey, that homeschooling development journey, as a home educator, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, is growth, is having a growth mindset. So how do you respond? So a couple questions for you guys. What are the areas that you are currently experiencing friction in? What are the areas of your life? So that'd be great. So give me hashtag friction. If you're tracking like a muddy cat through a house right now, give me a little hashtag friction. And then I'd love for you to list some areas in your life right now, maybe that you're experiencing friction in. And so I'll give you some of mine. So one of the areas that I'm really working on expanding the areas that I am consistent in. I've got a couple great strongholds that I am consistent in. My time with the Lord, my Bible study and stuff is I'm more consistent in that. I'm super consistent, but I still need to get more out of that. So I need to go deeper in my quiet time. But consistency, my PT, I want to get my physical training, I want to get more consistent. I want to be a more consistent, intentional parent. Here's another one. So consistency is a big one that I'm working on right now, which really is almost a function of character. So I'm really wanting to work on my character through consistency. And so that's one. My marriage, I can always grow better. One of the areas that I'm working on in both my marriage and my parenting is which impacts our homeschooling, which impacts our businesses, which impacts all our stuff that we're doing, all the things that we do. My emotional growth journey, becoming more aware of my emotions, being able to identify emotions, being more mindful of my emotions and stuff. Because that impacts everything. It impacts how I lead. It impacts how I am with my wife. It impacts how I parent. It impacts how I homeschool. It impacts how I do business. It impacts how I lead. It impacts everything, my emotional intelligence. So that's another area. So list those areas that maybe some of those areas that you're experiencing friction in. And friction may be another term for growth. It can be. There's different definitions of that. But so that's one area. Then how are you experiencing friction in those areas? What is the cause of that? Some of that can be external, some of that can be internal, and some of that could be unnecessary. It's a whole nother conversation from the time. And then here's another question: is how are you viewing that friction? Are you taking the time to reflect on the pruning that God is doing in your life? Take that time. Here's why I'm sharing this, because that's what I need to do. I need to take more time to reflect on those areas. Okay, God, where am I getting some friction in and getting dialed in and pruned in? How can I be more intentional to grow and to receive that? Because a lot of people, One of my backgrounds is executive coaching. I've been doing coaching work and stuff like that. What I have found is many people, when you offer suggestions, input, is defensiveness. Well, if defensiveness is one of your responses, there's some emotional growth work that you need to do in that area. Why are you being defensive, right? So here's a great tip too, is when I learned, a number of different books I've read, but a work of heart, Reggie McNeil talks about that God uses conflict and, let's say, tension as a tool. And then another book called Making of a Leader by Robert Clifton, I believe, that when you view that the way God views leadership, the way God develops us as his kids is from a lifetime perspective, not, oh, okay, you're 20, and so from 20 to 40 or 20 to 55 or 57, I'm developing this dude as a leader or as influence or whatever. No, it's the day we're born until the day we die, God has got a plan for us. He's working on us. When you view your pruning from a perspective, from an eternal perspective, that should help give perspective to the areas that you're getting pruned in. And also realize that God prunes those he loves. You wouldn't be getting dialed in if he didn't love you. So just realize that it's because he loves us that he prunes us, that he's working on us. So let me just double check here, make sure I hit a bunch of my notes here. I'll hit the notes I want to cover. So realize that it's purposeful. Pruning is purposeful. Give me a hashtag, pruning is purposeful. Pruning is purposeful. So realize that, and it's part of your journey. Again, as a homeschooler, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a spouse, as a leader, as an influencer, pruning is purposeful. For me, in the past, what I've done is I have taken pruning, whether it's from God or it's from God via my wife or however God is teaching me the lesson, and I've taken that personally. In other words, pruning is also personal, which is good too. Pruning is personal, so pruning is purposeful. Pruning is personal, but it's all but not from a standpoint that, because what I would do is I would feel guilty. I would feel bad and beat down, and oh, God's beating me down again because I'm terrible, or I'm not a good dad or a good husband or a good homeschool dad or a good entrepreneur or whatever, and I would just beat myself up. And so, but that's not why God. It's like our kid. When we our kid, we have very defined left and right limits for our kid in her life because she's a kid still, right? She's growing and maturing, and those left and right limits are expanding as she gets older. It's the same thing with us, with God and who we are and who he's called us to be. So I just want to encourage you all that pruning is purposeful, pruning is personal, and realize that who you're becoming, God cares about the big picture, not he's got an eternal perspective of who you are and who you're becoming and who he wants you to be. So I just want to encourage you and remind you that God there's a reason, and take that time to reflect and think through some of those areas of where you're experiencing some iron sharpening, getting sharpened in. God bless you all. So thankful for you, and you matter. Realize that you matter. You make a difference. You are a solution to somebody else's problems. And let's be a part of this journey of changing the world by changing your world by changing you. God bless you guys.